What if the reason people disrespect you has nothing to do with who you are and everything to do with what you allow? Think about the people you meet. Some people don't need to raise their voice, threaten anyone, or prove themselves. They simply walk into a room and something changes. People listen when they speak. People think twice before crossing their boundaries. Even when they say very little, their presence carries weight. Then there are people who are kind, intelligent, helpful, and loyal. Yet somehow everyone feels comfortable interrupting them, ignoring them, using them, or speaking to them however they want. Why? The difference is not always personality. It is presence. It is the energy you communicate before you even say a word. And that is what most people misunderstand about having an aura. A powerful aura isn't about making people afraid of you. It is about becoming so grounded, emotionally disciplined, and clear about your standards that people understand one thing immediately. You are not an easy person to manipulate. And the first step toward creating that presence is something most people completely fail at. Stop reacting immediately. Someone insults you, your emotions rise. Your mind instantly searches for the perfect response. You want to prove that you are not weak, so you answer. You argue, you explain, you become angry. And without realizing it, you have already given that person control because they pushed a button and you reacted exactly as they expected. Real strength begins when you can feel anger without becoming anger. You can feel disrespected without losing control. You can hear something offensive without allowing another person's behavior to dictate your behavior. That pause between what happens and how you respond is where your power lives. Imagine someone says something disrespectful to you. Instead of immediately attacking them, you pause. You look at them calmly. You don't rush to defend yourself. You don't become emotional. You simply say, "Was that necessary?" And then you stop talking. That silence can communicate more than a 5-minute argument, because now they are facing someone they cannot easily provoke. And that is powerful. Anger is easy to predict. Composure is not. When someone expects you to explode and you remain completely calm, they lose the psychological advantage they thought they had. The second rule is even more important. Stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided to misunderstand you. This is where many people destroy their own presence. Someone accuses them of something. They immediately start explaining. "No, that's not what I meant. You misunderstood me. I was only trying to help. Let me explain what actually happened." And suddenly, you are standing in front of another person, trying to convince them that you deserve to be understood. Why? If someone genuinely wants to understand you, they will listen. If someone genuinely respects you, they will ask questions. But if someone is determined to misunderstand you, no explanation will ever be enough. They will keep asking for more. And the more you explain, the more power you hand them. You don't have to turn every interaction into a courtroom where you are constantly defending yourself. Sometimes the strongest sentence is the simplest. "That doesn't work for me." That's it. No emotional speech. No desperate justification. No need to convince them that your boundary is reasonable. Your boundary doesn't need their approval. The moment you stop over-explaining yourself, your presence changes. People begin to realize that access to your time, attention, and emotional energy is not automatic, and that creates respect. The third rule is to stop being available to everyone all the time. Being kind does not mean being constantly accessible. Being generous does not mean people can demand your time whenever they want. And being loving does not mean abandoning yourself whenever someone needs something. If people know you will always answer immediately, always forgive immediately, always return, always help, and always accept whatever they do, eventually your kindness can become something they expect instead of something they appreciate. But understand this carefully. This does not mean playing games. Don't disappear to make people chase you. Don't pretend to be busy. Don't use silence as manipulation. Instead, build a life that does not revolve around being needed. Have your own purpose, your own goals, your own discipline, your own interests, your own standards. When you are comfortable standing alone, people can no longer control you through the fear of losing them. And that is where real confidence begins. Because the person who desperately needs someone to stay will tolerate things the person who is willing to walk away never will. This brings us to the fourth rule. Never threaten a boundary you are unwilling to enforce. A boundary without action is just a request. If you tell someone, "Don't speak to me like that," but continue talking while they keep insulting you, your words eventually lose their meaning. You don't need to threaten them. You don't need to shout. You don't need to prove that you're powerful. Simply make your boundary clear. You can speak to me respectfully, or we can end this conversation. And if they continue, end it. No dramatic speech. No revenge. No attempt to punish them. Just follow through. Because when people see that your words are connected to your actions, they begin taking your boundaries seriously. Consistency is more powerful than intimidation. Anyone can act powerful for 5 minutes. Real strength is behaving according to your standards even when nobody is watching. And then comes a weapon most people are uncomfortable using: silence. Most people are afraid of silence because silence forces them to sit with themselves. Someone says something disrespectful, and they immediately feel pressure to respond. They laugh nervously, they explain, they argue, they talk faster, they try to prove their value. But powerful people understand something different. Not every statement deserves an answer. Not every insult deserves your energy. Not every accusation deserves your defense. Sometimes silence says, "I heard you, and I am not going to allow you to pull me into your emotional world." That is a completely different kind of power. But there is something even deeper. Your aura is not created by words alone. It is created by how you carry yourself. Your posture, your eye contact, your movements, your pace, your ability to remain calm when someone else becomes emotional. Stop moving like you are asking permission to exist. Stand naturally. Speak clearly. Don't rush your words because you're afraid of being judged. Don't constantly look around for approval. Don't shrink yourself when you enter a room. You don't need to dominate the room. You simply need to be comfortable occupying your own space. Because people don't only listen to what you say. They read how you say it. Your body speaks before your mouth does. Your silence speaks. Your boundaries speak. Your consistency speaks. And when all of these things communicate the same message, something changes. People begin to feel that you are different. Not because you became cruel. Not because you became cold. But because you stopped being easily controlled. And that is only the beginning. Because the most powerful part of your aura comes from a decision most people are terrified to make. The decision to stop rewarding people who repeatedly disrespect you. Once you understand that, your relationships, your boundaries, and the way people treat you can change completely. The moment you stop rewarding disrespect, something changes. People begin to understand that their behavior has consequences, not because you threaten them, not because you punish them, but because you stop giving unlimited access to someone who repeatedly proves they don't know how to handle it. Think about it. If someone repeatedly insults you, but you keep laughing it off. If someone constantly cancels on you, but you keep making yourself available. If someone only contacts you when they need something, but you always drop everything to help. If someone ignores your boundaries, but you continue treating them exactly the same. Then you are teaching them something without saying a word. There is no real consequence for treating me badly. And people usually repeat what they can get away with. This is why boundaries are not about controlling other people. A boundary is about controlling your own response. You cannot force someone to respect you, but you can decide what happens when they don't. That distinction changes everything. You don't say you are not allowed to disrespect me. You say, if you disrespect me, I will remove myself from the situation. One is control, the other is self-respect. And self-respect is where your aura becomes powerful. Because once people realize that you are genuinely willing to walk away, they can no longer use your fear of losing them against you. This is one of the deepest forms of personal freedom. You stop asking, what can I do to make them stay? And start asking, does this person deserve continued access to me? That question completely changes your position. You are no longer begging to be chosen. You are choosing, and people can feel that difference. But be careful. This doesn't mean you should become cold, arrogant, or suspicious of everyone. A powerful person does not walk around looking for disrespect. They simply know what they will tolerate and what they won't. They don't need to announce their standards every 5 minutes. They live them. That is why consistency matters more than intimidation. Anyone can pretend to be confident. Anyone can act aggressive. Anyone can raise their voice. But maintaining your standards when you're angry, lonely, disappointed, or afraid, that is real discipline. And discipline creates an aura that cannot be easily faked. Now consider another important rule. Stop trying to win every argument. Some people will provoke you simply because they want your reaction. They don't actually want a solution. They want emotional control. They want you angry. They want you defensive. They want you explaining yourself for 20 minutes while they sit back and watch you lose your composure. Don't give them that satisfaction. Ask yourself one question. Does responding to this improve my life? If the answer is no, silence may be the stronger choice. You don't need the final word. You don't need to prove that you're smarter. You don't need to make someone admit that they were wrong. Sometimes walking away from an argument is not weakness. It is evidence that your peace is more valuable than your ego. And this is where emotional discipline separates powerful people from reactive people. A reactive person says, "You made me angry." A disciplined person thinks, "You behaved badly. I decide what I do next." That difference is enormous. Because once you stop giving other people responsibility for your emotional state, you become much harder to control. Someone can insult you. You remain calm. Someone can ignore you. You remain focused. Someone can reject you. You continue your life. Someone can misunderstand you. You don't destroy yourself trying to prove your worth. That is emotional independence. And emotional independence is one of the strongest forms of aura. But there is another mistake you must stop making. Stop chasing people who repeatedly withdraw their respect. When someone pulls away, many people immediately chase. They send messages. They ask what happened. They try harder. They become more available. They offer more attention. And sometimes they do all of this because they are terrified that the other person will leave. But chasing someone who has chosen distance rarely creates genuine respect. It often communicates desperation. You don't need to chase every person who walks away. Sometimes you simply let them go. If they want to return, they can return with respect. If they don't, you continue building your life. Your value does not disappear because someone failed to recognize it. Remember that your value is not determined by someone's attention, and your confidence cannot depend on someone else's approval. This is why your life outside of other people matters so much. Build something, learn something, train your body, develop your mind, improve your skills, protect your time, document goals that make you excited to wake up. Because when your entire identity is built around relationships, rejection becomes terrifying. But when your identity is built around purpose, rejection becomes information. You can lose someone's attention without losing yourself. And that is when your presence becomes different. You stop entering relationships from a position of fear. You enter from a position of choice. Now understand something even deeper. You can be kind without being weak. You can forgive without reopening the door. You can love someone without tolerating everything they do. You can have compassion without becoming someone's emotional punching bag. Strength does not require cruelty. In fact, the strongest people often have the most compassion because they don't need to hurt others to feel powerful. Their strength comes from internal stability. They don't need revenge. They don't need humiliation. They don't need to make someone feel small. They simply know where they stand. And when someone crosses the line, they act accordingly. That is the aura you should build, not an aura that says, be afraid of me. An aura that says, I respect myself too much to participate in disrespect. There is a huge difference. Fear can create temporary obedience. Respect creates lasting influence. And if you want people to think twice before disrespecting you, stop trying to intimidate them. Become predictable in your standards and unpredictable in your reactions. Be calm when they expect anger. Be silent when they expect an argument. Walk away when they expect you to chase. Say no when they expect automatic agreement. And stay consistent when they expect you to eventually give in. That consistency creates psychological weight. People begin to understand that your boundaries are real. And once people know your boundaries are real, they stop testing them as often. But perhaps the greatest transformation happens inside you. You stop needing to prove that you're strong. You stop performing confidence. You stop trying to look mysterious. You stop wondering whether everyone likes you. You stop changing yourself to fit every room. You become comfortable with who you are. And strangely enough, that is when other people become more comfortable respecting you. Because genuine confidence doesn't ask for attention. It doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, it doesn't threaten, it simply exists. So remember this, your aura is built every time you keep a promise to yourself. Every time you say no when you mean no. Every time you walk away from disrespect instead of negotiating with it. Every time you choose discipline over emotional reaction. Every time you refuse to abandon your values just to keep someone close. These small decisions build something powerful inside you. Self-trust. And when you trust yourself, you no longer need everyone else to validate you. That is when your presence changes. You become calmer. Your words become fewer but stronger. Your silence becomes comfortable. Your boundaries become clear. Your decisions become faster. And your relationships become more selective. You don't need everyone to respect you. You need to respect yourself enough that disrespect no longer gets unlimited access to your life. That is the real dark psychology of aura. Not manipulation, not fear, not control, self-mastery. Because the most powerful person in the room isn't always the loudest. Sometimes it's the person sitting quietly, completely comfortable with themselves, knowing that they don't need to chase, threaten, convince, or prove anything. And when that person finally speaks, people listen, not because they are afraid, because they have learned that those words mean something. So from this moment forward, stop asking yourself, how can I make people respect me? Ask something deeper. Am I behaving like someone I respect? Because when your answer becomes yes, your entire presence begins to change. You no longer need to force respect. You become the kind of person people naturally think twice before disrespecting. And that is the aura worth building.